Ay. Otra vez. Come here. Let me tell you something. I remember Tampa, the way she used to be, the places we would run to, the faces we would see. Yes, I remember Tampa, those precious memories, a city rising on the move, a simple yet progressive groove. I remember Tampa, and she remembers me. Yeah. She remembers me.
Welcome to the Tampa Natives Show. Stay tuned now for the fastest 60 minutes in cable broadcast history. Live from the studios at TBCN, the home of the Tampa Natives Show. Join your hosts, Mario Nunez, the 15-minute girl, and Steve Canella, as they celebrate growing up in Tampa. From Shock Armstrong to Shakey's Pizza, from Braddock Street to Buffalo Avenue. Get ready to call in and tell us your stories, because sharing your memories has never been this much fun. And now, Mario Nunez, the 15-minute girl, and Steve Canella.
She remembers me.
Hi, Tampa Natives Show fans. Welcome back to this your Thursday night 7 o'clock edition of the Tampa Natives Show. And you've probably noticed by now we started in the 3-shot with our esteemed guest, Al Fox, here. And, of course, there's one noticeably missing from the table here tonight, our very own 15-minute girl who's a little bit under the weather. And speaking of the weather, listen, I don't know what happened today. I don't know what's happening outside. But if it's not global warming and climate change, we're Tampa natives, Steve. We've grown up here. We know that it gets stormy in the summertime.
But not like this.
And not this early.
No.
I mean, it's May 30th, and it's already monsoon season like if it's August 31st. So, maybe we do need to turn to ABC Action News and keeping you safe in Tampa, ABC Action News.
It was raining cats and dogs
Anyway,
tonight.
15-minute girls under the weather tonight, and we hope that you're feeling better, darling, and we will see you soon. But back to the show at hand tonight. Al Fox, who is joining us tonight in the studio. We made contact with Al. We told him, Al, we've heard your story, and it's time now that our Tampa Native Show fans get to know you, get to meet you.
Absolutely.
I've heard the story the first time, the second time. It just resonates with me. It's rich. I think it has everything to do with what it is that makes the Tampa Native Show special. If I can tell you this, a little bit about Al, just to back the story up real quick. Born in 1944 in the heart of Ybor City. So growing up on 7th Avenue, quite honestly, just a little bit east of Nebraska, does it get any more central to our story, to our history, to our grandparents, to our great-grandparents who immigrated here from Spain and from Sicily and from Cuba? Al was born first generation from that great generation, and went to OLPH. Went to George Washington Junior High School, graduated from Jefferson High School, and then he'll tell us here through some serendipitous occurrences in his life, ended up enjoying a wonderful 40-year-plus career, walking in the halls of Congress and working amongst the power brokers in Washington, much before this time now that we've come to know as such an acrimonious and dysfunctional Congress. So, or I should say political structure. So Al's going to share some of those stories with us. We're also pleased to announce that Al has already graciously told us he's going to be back next week. Why is that, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you. Because there's just too much to cover here in 1 week. So Al is going to be, this week, giving us the first part of the story. Next week, we're going to fill in all the blanks. You might have also noticed that we don't have our phone on the table, traditional phone like we normally do on the table. Why is that? Well, because we've got a lot of ground to cover. And we're going to start right post-haste and go right to the questions and answers. However, Steve, as you can see, is hard by his computer. He's going to be getting all of the emails tonight in real time. So please, if you've got a question for Al as we begin to tell his story, send them to us. Stevie, this would be a great time for you to give him that email address.
It'd be perfect. That That email address is goodtimes@tampanativeshow.com. goodtimes@tampanativeshow.com. Looking forward to your emails, so be sure to send them in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
And Steve gets a little ring on his
notification.
Yeah, a little notification,
That's right.
little chime on his computer, so we know when your emails are coming in. All right. With that all established, the backdrop, Al Fox. First and foremost, man, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Doing good?
Thanks for being here.
Great, and
Thank you for braving the elements to come out here and be with us tonight, because
it was.
as we know from the old neighborhood, that's what we call an aguacero. That's a tremendous water zero that was
aguacero.
falling.
Mario, first let me just say that thank you to you and to Sally and to Steve for the creativity and the determination to come up with this concept. And it's, Ybor City is a unique place, and
Yes.
it has a unique story. And it's a shame that people take it for granted or move on and look back on it. But what the three of you have done, you should take great pride in doing something.
Where's
Thank
my
you.
bell,
Thank
Stevie?
you. I
Where's
know.
my bell? I'm going
No
to
bell
ask. I'm going
tonight?
to ask one of our young camera assistants to get my bell,
We're
because
gonna need that
if
tonight.
that wasn't a bell ring, I don't know what was. And you know what? Usually that endorsement comes at the end of our show, and sometimes I'll be
does.
honest with you. Sometimes we solicit for it, and other times it just happens organically.
That's right.
Well, tonight, thank you, Al. That was awful
My
generous
pleasure.
of you.
That was
and,
very nice.
And I'm ready to say good night, everybody. Drive home safely. But
No, there's a lot more to
Al,
hear.
listen, we take a great deal of pride. It's in that little zippered compartment there, the little pouch. Look at the pouch, camera person. You were headed in the right direction there. Yep, look down there at the bottom, one of those three compartments. No, right in the bottom. Look at one of those three pouches. Keep looking. Don't worry. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. Al, we take great pride because Steve is third generation descendant from those wonderful Sicilians that immigrated here, turn of the century. Myself, my story goes through Cuba. And of course, we know a host of friends and contemporaries who had the Asturias and the Spanish migration story. So, and then that's, then there's the German and the Jewish. And then so, there's a lot of different elements that make up the wonderful tapestry that we know as Ybor City. And we know historically that Ybor City was really the tail, if you will, that was wagging the dog, because it was Ybor City that put Tampa on the map. We know that. Thank you so much. And there's my bell ring. I needed that. Thank you for your endorsement, Al. The truth be told, we want to hear a little bit about what you can tell us to fill in those blanks about the Ybor City story, but we want to know more about Ybor Fox Jr. So why don't you start with your parents, maybe where they came from, tell us where you were born, and start there.
Well, it's somewhat embarrassing to toot your own horn, so to speak, but really I am the great beneficiary of wonderful parents and a wonderful family. My dad, really his family is from Naples. They're Italian. We like to tease the Sicilians. And then my mom's family, they're from Spain and Zaragoza, Spain. And my mother was actually born in Cuba, but my mother left Cuba when she was 10 months old, and passed away a couple of years ago at age 92. So it had nothing to do with the revolution and what have you. But she ended up there, and my grandmother, her mother, Carmen Ramirez, was really ahead of her time. This is a woman that, when you think about it, it was a world-class opera singer.
Wow.
And performed in these operettas all around the world. And she had 6 daughters, and they were born, some in Spain, some in Mexico, 2 in Cuba. And they ended up here in Tampa, and my grandfather, Ernesto, was in the first orchestra in the Columbia Restaurant. And when you go to the Columbia Restaurant and you see Cesar Gunsmart as a young 17-year-old violinist in that picture, he's the tallest one in the picture. The shortest person with the bass is my grandfather. And then my grandmother Carmen was a founder of what was called the Spanish Little Theater, that is now morphed into the Spanish Lyric Theater. And it was just a labor of love. They were musicians, and my father was a blue-collar worker, and the old school, get a college education, and that was really his desire. I have 2 younger brothers and an older sister, and their desire was that they had to go to schooling, formal education, which they never had.
Right, to advance the.
And I'm embarrassed to admit that I was not the the best student until I was almost 21 years old. But I had a great childhood. I remember going to Ybor City. At age 15, I started hanging around Baker's Pool Hall, and I thought that was going to be my life's vocation for the longest time. And when I was 21 years old, out of nowhere, my family was not a political family. Someone knew someone that knew someone that knew someone. And my father came home on a Thursday and told me that there might be an opportunity for me to go work in Washington, D.C. I had no desire in Washington, D.C. I had no formal education. And from that Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday was Labor Day. And at 8:15, Monday, Labor Day, 1965, I boarded an airplane with a one-way ticket to go work in Washington, D.C. What I was going to do, I had no idea. I didn't even know what a senator was.
Wow.
And, but what I noticed within a week, and the job that I had was to go work as a very junior entry-level errand person in Senator George Smathers' office. Get coffee for the secretaries, open the mail. But it was indoor work, and I had to wear a tie and coat. And but within a couple of weeks, I realized immediately that I was white. My last name was Fox, and that when I put on a tie and coat and walked in the quarters of the Congress, you could not tell me apart from the young man whose father had been to Princeton or a graduate of Yale Law School, Harvard Law School. So the next thing happened. I got another job, and 41 years went by, and had some fascinating experiences. I worked in the Congress. I was a legislative director in the House. I formed a lobbying business. I formed an outsourcing company. Ended up working for the government of South Africa at the height of the apartheid system.
Which is another amazing story. We'll drill down and get a little bit closer to that story as well.
And but when people would ask me where are you from, I would always say Ybor City. Ironically, I never dreamed I would come back, but I moved back here in 2006 to run for Congress.
With a great source of pride, I would imagine you say you were from Ybor City.
Oh yes, absolutely.
That's and the magic about what we discover as we continue to unfold the story of the Tampa native, and I love the way that sounds. Write that down, Stephen, please.
I like that. I do.
As we continue to unfold that story, is that's I think at the heart of what makes a Tampa native so special, Al, and arguably what has made your career wonderful. The late Joe Lala and those that have come out of Rodney Justo, our dear friend Rodney Justo, because these guys have really. They've made it in a lot of ways. Mark Barrow comes to mind. These guys have taken a big step. Lou Piniella, certainly. I mean, these guys that they've made it, but they stayed true to their humble roots because of the grounding that they got from their parents, because of the lessons they learned at their grandparents' knees, and that in great part is what makes us special. I think. You talked about it at the outset of the show that. Being the Ybor City story, the industrial complex that was established here in 1890s that rivaled anything that Carnegie and Ford were doing up north, the great steel, the cigar industry. Sure. People don't realize it, but back in those days, that was unheard of, and especially here in the South. Before we conquered refrigeration, before we knew, how to battle mosquitoes and the alligators that were in the streets, and this was a Wild West town in the southeastern part of the United States. But what developed out of here is characters like yourself and guys and gals that ultimately took the big step on the big stage, but did us proud, man. You know what I mean? Came back and told the stories, where they'd been over the summit, you know what I mean? Saw what they saw, came back to tell the stories. We showed a picture just earlier. I wanted to go back to that because I want to reference that. That picture of your mom, which was a shot that you gave us, that you told us was inside of the Citrus Park Mall for a good while, and it was a beautiful shot of your mom. You grew up in a family that expressed its art.
Correct.
Your grandmother was started the little theater here in Ybor City, and your mother was.
And they would have bit parts as a young, my mother and her sisters.
Would you be thrust into that life as well early on? Did you ever do a talent show? No singing, no playing of the congas.
I played the.
The radio?
The trumpet, Lady of Spain solo once, but that was just not ironically, in the world which I ended up being,
Sure.
public speaking and was just not my thing. I didn't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it now. This is what I enjoy, small groups.
Intimate
and,
conversations, sure.
But no, that was my family.
You want to start at any one of these pictures? We'd love to call one of them up so we can. You want to talk about the one you mentioned? Your mom. Excuse me. Your mom had 6 sisters, 6 daughters. But no. Your abuela had 6 daughters, but no, your mom was one of 6 sisters.
Right.
There's a photograph here, I believe, of your aunts. Correct?
Can you call it up?
You want to call up picture number 12?
Number 12.
This is a good picture here of a lovely assortment
Great
of Tampa
photo.
natives,
It
and
is.
maybe you can go over the names here and for our viewers, we can give them a little bit of context.
Is the picture up?
Picture
I
number
can't-
12.
Picture number 12.
Yep, it's right there on the monitor. It'll be up in just a moment.
Okay.
There it is. You want to bring that up full so
Right.
we can get a good look at that, Beck? Yeah. Thank you so much.
The lady in the middle is the aunt to the 6 sisters that you see there.
That would have been your mom's sister, right?
No.
No, your mom's your abuela's sister.
The abuela's sister.
Abuela's sister.
And the lady on my, I was looking at to the left, is my Aunt Peely, and she is no longer here. And they lived and had a ranch in Lutz. She was married to Bobby Diaz, D-I-E-Z. And then the lady next to her, that's my mother. And then the next lady is my Aunt Alice, and she's the only one that's still living.
She's the one with the glasses
She's
there,
the one with the
right?
glasses, and she was married to Uncle Lou Russo, and he was the finance director for the city of Tampa for many years.
There you go.
He passed away a couple of years ago now, and then that's Dia. And then on her left is my Aunt Carmen, and her husband was Uncle Lawrence. And he used to be the manager of the National Shirt Shop downtown.
All
yes.
right, there you go.
Yes.
Some Tampa roots.
We have a picture of that.
And all of the nephews started out as stock boys at National Shirt
You had a
Shop.
job in the summer?
Had a job in the summer. And Uncle Lawrence was always a very dapper dresser and taught all the boys how to dress and
Conduct themselves appropriately.
and
as young men.
very mild-mannered man, very
Sure.
distinguished. And I remember the first day on the job there, I did something that he did not approve of, and words came out of his mouth that Uncle Lawrence never spoke that way, and I was shocked. But I had always seen him at a family reunion,
Sure.
or
He was
not
very
in a
demure,
work
very polite.
exactly. And he turned out to be quite a taskmaster and a man that was very supportive of my entire career, including
Wonderful.
the work that I do on Cuba. So.
So you were close with him.
Right, and then the other
The lady on the far right?
was meant Rosa Figueredo, and
It's a Tampa name for sure.
That's another Tampa, name.
for sure, and the lady of my Aunt Elsie Santana,
Santana, yeah.
and they
There
both
they are
passed
up again on
away.
the screen again.
Yeah, my Aunt Elsie, and her husband passed away, and she has several children that are prominent in the community.
You know, the photograph that goes with that photograph is the photograph of the gentleman,
Right
correct?
before it.
Is that right,
different
Steve?
time, but this yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that too?
Sure.
Because if we'll show that, call that picture.
That's
Steve.
number 11.
Picture
Becky.
number 11, because this photograph that we're about to see, there it is there. Tell us what that motley crew is all about.
That's
Because
starting on the left with the sunglasses.
Yes.
That's Uncle Angel, and of course he's deceased, and he was married to an
Angel
Elsie
last name?
Santana.
Santana, there you go. Okay.
And then that's Uncle Lawrence Ferraro, Lawrence Ferraro, and then that's Uncle Bobby, and he was always the cowboy, macho guy in
The Lutz, he's a Lutz resident.
Lutz resident.
Yep.
And then my dad, when that picture was taken, they put those bib overalls on him and that straw hat. And
He looked like a campesino there in that
like
picture.
a campesino. And then Uncle Louis, he was Lou Russo.
Yeah.
He was prominent in the city here for many years. And that was in the ranch, the farmland.
So what were they conjuring up, you suppose, in this
This was
photograph? They
either
weren't making
Labor
sauce
Day.
here, were they?
They were Labor Day or 4th of July or something. I can't recall. And there'd be, the whole family, all the children would get out there. They'd get out there at 9 in the morning and stay there the whole day. And
You remember those days, though?
I remember
Fondly?
very well. And
Good memories?
my father's brother, Fred Fox, was deceased. And that side of the family and all their children would come out as well. They were just, when you think about those things, and I look at my own family now, that those things are just not done because time is, we're too busy,
Correct.
Or we're travel, or we live in other cities. And when you look at those gentlemen and those ladies, not one divorce among them.
Wow.
Okay.
That's what made our story
incredible.
special, Al. That's what made our story special. We were fortunate in a lot of ways.
It was a unique breed, and unique people, and unique time.
Unique time.
And the hows or the whys, and maybe it's a program like this that will force some people to go ahead and do it. You know, I mean, my career was up in D.C., and I have, you know, my children, and while I had so much more than my mother and father had, there's no question about that, but the bar wasn't very high.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, and I mean that as a compliment, not as a criticism.
Correct.
Well, for my children to have more than what I accomplished, and they do, I'm very proud of them. They're very successful in their own right. Or my older children. Well, the bars just moved that much higher. And what am I trying to say? If you were Tiger Woods' son and you wanted to be a golfer,
Good luck.
exactly.
Good luck.
The bar, okay. But if you wanted to be a golfer and your father just sold golf balls at a department store, you might have had a shot at it,
Yeah,
or
right,
something,
right,
to
right.
come in there, because the bar is not set so
We
different.
talk about that on the show
all the time.
from time to time, Stevie, like our children. You know, they're never going to know what 35 cents a gallon of gas was like. They're never going to know what it was like to fill up your gas tank with $4.
We may have had less, but in many ways we had more.
We say it all the time on the show. Al. We say when we grew up, and I'm sure it was the same for you because you're just a little bit ahead of us. You know, we didn't have much. It didn't take much. You know, we didn't have anything. We had everything, Al.
Right.
Well, we did.
And today, conceivably, they have everything,
Oh.
and yet, in a lot of ways, they have nothing.
I mean, every Easter and every Christmas, my brothers and sisters, we had a new outfit, new shoes, a little shirt, whatever it was. Okay, and I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. I never went hungry. I didn't know until I went to Washington that I was poor.
And you were rich in so many ways, and we all were.
It's one of my grandsons went to. He and his dad collect basketball memorabilia, and I mean hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff. And they went to Chicago in the past couple of months, convention, and my grandson is, this particular grandson, he's 10, and he had special tennis shoes made for him up there at this NBA convention, whatever it was, for $700. And he's telling me the story.
Wow.
And it was $700 pop, and I'm thinking $700.
My first car didn't cost
My
that.
father's entire wardrobe, the whole family didn't have $700.
Isn't that amazing?
And it just rattled it off. And so I've been really impressed upon my children that, you know, like when they were growing up, and I belonged to a very fancy country club up in D.C., but that was my toy.
Right.
I earned it.
Right.
My children didn't come there and hang around the pool and wrote my number and ordered a cheeseburger.
Right.
They always had to have my permission or their mother's permission to do so.
Excellent.
They didn't like it at the time.
Right.
But now they see
Great lessons.
There's great lessons.
Great lessons.
That's awesome.
Do we have any emails? Are we okay on the email so far?
We're okay right now.
Okay.
We sure are. We don't
Listen,
have-
if you're out there watching and you have a question, or if you're enjoying the conversation as we are, we understand completely. We've got probably no less than about 15 photographs that we want to make sure that we get through, because each one of them has a little story attached to them, and we promised Al that we would show these photographs so that next week when we come back and round out the
expand on them.
conversation, we can maybe go in a little different direction and talk about other topics.
Right.
So would it be okay, Al, if we just kind of brought a photograph up, and as you identified the photograph, you maybe talked a little bit about each one? These are the ones
Sure.
that we saw the other day
Yeah,
when you brought them
okay,
to us.
right.
And if you want to go in another direction,
Well,
or if
we-
something comes into your head, you go, Marty, you know, let me tell you this. Go with that.
We can blame my wife because she
For the
got
photographs?
upset. Well, she got upset with me because we got them in shoe boxes and she just picked a bunch of stuff. So I think,
It was catch as catch can.
yeah. So,
Well, that's okay.
But there's a lot of nice ones in here too. They're very
And
fascinating.
the truth of the matter is, to know Al's storytelling abilities, he can take any one of these photographs
Oh, I know.
and give you 20 minutes, and a
Exactly.
wonderful 20 minutes at that. Let's go ahead and bring up, call for a photo, Stevie, and let's go in order. You want to go in
Let's-
order?
Well, how about this? How about number 7?
7,
Let's
okay.
start with 7.
All right. Mark them off as you go, so that way we don't duplicate them
yeah,
as you call
let's
for
do
them.
that.
So
There
you
we go.
call for 7. Let's go with photograph number 7. Yes, that'll do it.
That'll
Picture in
work.
picture. Wow, you're going to start right there,
We're
huh,
gonna start
Steve?
right there.
You went right to the bit. Man, Steve.
This show goes by fast.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, allow me
right
to
to
say
the
this
point.
out. Allow me to say this, okay? We didn't go over this in pre-production, but and if you want to bring me up back on the take the three because I got to say this. Usually there's there's the
little
the
segue.
beginning, the middle, and the end. There's always the denouement, and for those a French word I don't even know what it means.
Sounds good.
And when we used to watch the FBI with Efren Zimbalist Jr. in the '60s, there was always the epilogue, whatever that was.
Right.
But usually there's a story that builds and the drama. Steve went right to the denouement.
Right straight to it.
And I say,
Right to the punchline.
I say go back. We reeled it back. See, people don't even remember what they just saw. We're not going to show that one yet, man. That's the cream of the cherry.
No,
Let's save that
there's so
one.
many
No,
better
there's-
cream of the
You want to go with
No,
that
you
one? You
could-
want to start with that
Well,
one? I say
yeah. Which one do you want to start with?
I would have liked to have started with the patrol picture, or Albertico when he was in junior high school,
Oh, I see.
or start
Well,
with the
you-
patrol picture. Let's at least start with chronologically,
ROTC.
because if we're going to start
Number
with
5.
we're going to start with Coretta Scott King,
Number 5.
and Albert getting an award. Was he ever a kid? You know what I mean? So
No.
you're saying Albert was born with a beard and an old guy? You're not old.
I vote for you, Steve. I like that part of my life better than the part he's getting to.
All right,
There you go. There you
So
go.
number 5, is that the...
Let's go with 5 real quick, because this is a great story. This is the kind of picture number 5, Mama.
5'8".
5
5A.
alpha.
5A.
All right, just to set this up, this is the kind of things, these are the kinds of things that happened to Al Fox when he was a young guy that kind of set him on a little bit of a path. Go ahead, Al.
This is the patrols are selected from around the state to go once a year to Washington, D.C., and that's me up there, and I was captain of the patrols at W.P. Henderson High School. I can admit today that I really didn't deserve that honor, but the principal was a friend of my father, and I think that's why I had the edge up over everybody. all the rest of
Attaboy.
it. But in that picture are several people. One of a prominent Tampa lawyer, Benny Lazara, Judge Figueroa's.
All of those kids were from the Tampa.
From
Now,
the-
you said you picked up some in Lakeland, right, on the way?
I'm going to say a third of those kids were from the Tampa area.
Okay.
The rest were from other parts of the state. And that's right on the Capitol steps, and I think, so that was like 1955 or 6, I can't recall. So I was 12 years old, and the irony is we took the train up to D.C., and there was a group of us staying at the Stratford Hotel overlooking K Street, and we were throwing water balloons out the window.
Oh, no, you weren't.
And
Safety
So
patrols.
we got caught, and they were making arrangements to send Ben Lazaro.
Some of you
and
home?
Some of us home, and but we hung it in there. And what I find so fascinating is that then years later, I end up working there in the Capitol building. And
Sweet irony.
not exactly. That's all
Sweet
it was.
irony.
I mean, it's, again, not something that I earned or deserved. I literally was at the right place at the right time.
But sometimes that's what it takes. You know, sometimes it takes, somebody got to be Chuck Yeager. Somebody's got to be John Glenn.
Right.
You know, somebody's got to be strapped to the cockpit and say, look, man, you're going to be
Yeah.
the first one. You good with that? Let's go. And then you make history. And the story that I read here, which we will talk about a little bit later in the Cigar City
Fascinating.
magazine that was written, the article that was written by Paul Guzzo, very good article by Paul Guzzo. There's a little side story about our former mayor. We don't want to give too much away, spoiler alert, but that was another one of those moments in history that
Oh, yeah.
that might have been, it could have been. All right, let's call up another. I just want to show these photos real quick. Go 2, 3, 4 in succession, in order, and then we'll get right back. 2, 3, 4. Al Fox, this is your life. Al, talk to me a little bit. Were you a patrol here? This was that time? This was that?
This was,
Yeah?
yeah, I think that's the 5th grade picture.
See, he didn't always have a beard, Stevie. You know what I mean? His hair wasn't always great.
Is that Bobby Rydell?
That's Bobby
Or-
Rydell,
yeah.
and
Looks like it.
or is it Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels? I'm not
And
sure
that's
which.
the high school picture,
Nice head of hair, brother.
That's
All right, now,
the
what's going on here?
ROTC.
That's one of those hand-painted pictures, or is that a, you know, because back then that was an art form. You know, you take a
really?
black and white and you paint.
Yeah.
That's actually, you didn't look like you were happy to be in the ROTC, Al, or
Actually, it was, wasn't at the time, but
Right.
it turned out to be a great experience when I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So you
No,
traveled a little bit as a young man before you got into
No,
your
I went from
professional
Ybor
career?
City to the nation's capital in 1955, and then went back in 1965, and I've done some traveling since
And then when you got there in 65, that's when you kind of threw down some roots and you stayed there for a minute.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, 65. All right, that's wonderful. They give you a little perspective, ladies and gentlemen. That was Al Fox in his early years. We saw the picture of Al's mom, but I want to show it again. The one, that's picture number 5, Becky.
Right.
That's the one that, you know, when you're at Citrus Park Ball and you're walking around, and if you're not paying attention, shame on you.
Yeah.
Look up, ladies and gentlemen. Look up, because above the entryway to most of the stores are a lot of Burgert Brothers photographs of murals, beautiful, of classic Tampa. And this is one of them, and that is Mr. Al Fox's mom. What was she doing there, Al?
There was some performance that they were doing, and her other sisters are in there as well. And
Lovely
they just happened
lady,
to take that.
lovely lady.
Yeah, the
Pretty lady.
ladies were all very attractive ladies.
Yep.
Great photo.
No, thank you.
Al, you're leaving Ybor City, going from there straight to Washington. That's like a culture shock in a way, right? And I mean, did you miss having Cuban toast and café con leche?
Great question, Stevie, and let's put it in context. This
Yeah.
is 1965.
Yeah.
This is in the heart of the civil rights time period when, you know, the 64 legislation was written and passed, and post, not even 2 years post presidential assassination, JFK.
That's right.
So
There's a lot going on.
That was the backdrop
Sure.
with which you were parachuted into Washington.
And you know, I'm embarrassed to admit that at the time, I was not very knowledgeable or worldly
connected to the story that
about those
much.
things. But within a matter of, as I said, a matter of weeks, I mean, I realized that, you know, wow, this is important and significant, and you know, end up working right on the Senate floor. I mean, you see,
That's pretty cool.
You know, the giants of the.
You went from the Baker's Pool Hall to the
Yeah, I was
Senate
just
floor.
going to say, you went
Exactly.
from learning how to make that bridge
Right.
against the side rail
Right.
to getting
and
coffee
both
from
were-
inside the Senate chambers.
Both were great.
Learning experiences.
Great learning experiences. In 1966, I think it was, or 67, I had most probably the most important job I ever had. Didn't realize it at the time. And in those days, when there was conferences, committees, they were closed to the media and the public. And so here are the giants in the Senate sitting around: Russell Long of Louisiana, Mike Mansfield, Everett Dirksen, a young Bobby Kennedy, sitting around a conference table debating a particular provision of a particular bill. And it would get heated, but closed, there's no outsiders, and no staff in the room except me. And my job, I had a rectangular table and I had 3 pitchers of water. And my job was that when the senator's water glass got half full, was to get up and top off the water glass. I found that job demeaning and way beneath my abilities, but I would pay the Senate today money to have that job again.
Really?
And why?
Think about that.
Because I'm inside the room.
Right.
Okay, I'm inside
That's
the room.
amazing. That's
And if I can
access.
take a moment to tell a little funny
Please.
story,
It's your night, Al.
I'm sitting here, and of course I'm bored to tears, and they're arguing about
Not tonight.
provisions. No,
Because we're doing
As a
something
matter of
wrong
fact,
if
I
you're
feel,
bored to tears.
I feel more comfortable and welcome now. So.
Thank you.
Good.
And so they're going back and forth, and one senator is telling another senator that he has some problems with these people back home that raise a lot of money in his campaign, and he knows that the position they want him to take is wrong, and completely wrong and dead wrong, but he's somewhat in a bind. And Russell Long of the Long family, he said to him, well, I don't understand what your problem is. And he said, well, Mr. Chairman, I just explained, you know, that these people raise a lot of money for me, and they want me to vote yes on this bill, and I think it's a bad bill, and we need to defeat it. Chairman Long says, I don't understand what the problem is. And he looked at him, and Chairman Long said, let me tell you something. If you can't take their money, sleep with their women, and drink their whiskey, and vote against them, you don't deserve to be a senator.
Wow.
How about that for a lesson, huh?
So I'm sitting there.
for a
you know,
lesson?
I mean, let him think about it. He said,
Yeah,
he
no,
said,
listen.
what's the problem?
Yeah.
You took their money, you needed it for the campaign, great. Vote against them. You know, they'll get over it.
Wow.
So,
Because you've got to do the right thing. You've got to do the right thing.
and yeah, so.
And you know, because of where we are now and the state of the sad state of affairs and the dysfunction that's taking place now, what a horrible, you know, it tells a bad story about where we are in our political process, because when you were there, there were always the two divisions, the two political parties, but the rancor that you see today didn't exist.
But Mario, that's so true what you say, but it isn't. Our system has built-in checks and balances.
Yes.
And in my opinion, the reason that rancor exists, the reason that they're not called attack, is that the media today does not do their job. Mm-hmm. They don't do their job. Today, in this, look at our town. Mm-hmm. The reporters in this community are friends, personal friends, with the leaders of this community. It is difficult for them to write critical things.
Of course.
And the media, in my opinion, has failed us tremendously. There is no media. I mean, the Rush Limbaughs of the world and the Sean Hannitys of the world, that's not media. That's entertainment.
Yeah, that's circus.
Okay?
That's Barnum and Bailey.
The fellow, the guy at CNBC, those people, Rachel Maddow, that's not journalism, okay? That's favoring a particular philosophy and then using your, Fox News. I mean, turn it on in the morning, and the first words out of all three of their mouth is trashing the president, okay?
Every day, all day.
Every day, all day.
Every day, all day.
On the right and the left.
Sure. No.
That's not journalism. I mean, there are no Edward R. Murrows. Okay?
Walter Cronkite.
There are no Walter Cronkite. Okay? Walter Cronkite had an ability that while he was friends with some very important people, okay, but he had an ability and to make them understand that he would not cross that line. Mm-hmm. One of the famous interviews was Roger Mudd and Ted Kennedy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you, okay, where they used to play tennis together. And the Kennedy family deeply resented what Roger Mudd did in that interview. But Roger Mudd was doing his job when he tells Ted Kennedy at a very young age, okay, why do you think you should be president? Why do you want to be president? What have you done? And that caught, Kennedy thought he was going to get a lot of softballs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay?
Exactly. The first one he got was up under the chin.
Exactly. That doesn't happen here today.
That separation is not there.
Exactly. It's not there.
Yeah, the journalistic integrity, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The tough questions.
Exactly. You pick up both our major papers here. They do nothing but praise all our elected officials. They're great. Okay. No. Now, when those elected officials are out of office or something happens, then everybody piles up on them.
Right.
But they knew some of these things beforehand, okay? And so
it's the gotcha journalism that
exactly.
Or selective journalism.
Yeah,
gotcha journalism. And since when did the news? We're digressing just a minute, but bear with me. Since when did the local media, the local newscast? When we used to have in our early days, we had Hugh Smith and Ray Dantzler and those guys that we looked up to when we were 10, 11, 12 years old. Here, Channel 8, Channel 13. Since when did it become fashionable and in vogue for them to be keeping us safe, as it were? What are you keeping us safe from, number one? Right. Number two, why are they always trying to feather their bed with that investigative reporting? Are you supposed to be doing investigative reporting? Look, that's why we have investigative bureaus to do investigations. You're here to just report, objectively. I don't want, it's only a matter of time before one of these investigators with the microphone, erstwhile microphone, goes up and knocks on a door and says, excuse me, is the perpetrator is the pedophile home? For the lack of a better phrasing. And 3 or 4 shots ring out through the door. And that happens on live TV. That's not what I'm looking for from my media. And from my news journalism, whether it's the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, whichever it is, I'm just saying, report the facts as they are. Where the Watergate investigative...
Let us reach the conclusion.
Right.
Yeah.
And exactly. Don't
dig up the facts.
And don't try to put ideas in our respective heads. Well, I want to get back to your story because it's as exciting and compelling as it can possibly be. Let's go to picture 6A back and show this particular image, 6A, and comment on this one, this one right here. There it is. What is that? What are we looking at?
I was working for the majority leader, Mike Mansfield, who's one of the giants of the Senate, and I was offered a job to be the legislative director for a congressman from Ocala at the time, Congressman Chappell from Florida, and he was interested. He wanted to run for the Senate in the next year or two, and because I was, was very knowledgeable about the Senate, was a Floridian, and it was an opportunity to almost double my salary, and I took it. And it was Bill is deceased, but a wonderful man. But within a couple of weeks that I went to work for him, we had deep philosophical differences about the war in Vietnam.
Yeah, that was a tough time too, I would imagine.
And he was on the Armed Services Committee, and his answer to the war in Vietnam, now this is 1970, okay? His answer was nuke 'em.
Wow.
I mean, he was a hardliner of all the hardliners. And so my job, of course, was to serve at his pleasure, at his direction. So publicly, I adhered to the position that he took. But privately, when we were like this, I would, express my views that I just thought it was wrong. And we went on one Saturday afternoon, we went and there were these huge demonstrations out on the mall. And I pleaded with him, I said, come with me, and I want you to see veterans from Vietnam. And so we went without no one knowing who he was, and we spent the morning walking in the mall. And I remember I went back, and he was taken and moved and confused, but he concluded that they were agitators and put up for it and forms and really didn't believe it and this, that, and the other. And so within a year, I realized that I just couldn't work there, and so I resigned and fortunately, got another job. And we became very, very good friends after that.
That's got to be hard too, Al, when you find yourself at a crossroads where, you enjoy your job immensely, you like being where you are, but at the same time, you're at such philosophical odds that just getting up in the morning and getting dressed to go to that place,
it was hard.
It leaves you angst-ridden.
It was, and it was hard. But I think of my mom and dad and
the hardships
values,
they went
the values that they had.
Yeah.
That not to be a hypocrite. And,
Don't quit.
Well, it was good. I quit on something that I believed in, and
right.
I'm sure that they would have been very supportive. Years later, I think at the '90 convention in Atlanta, he was there. And we went out and had dinner together, and he was dying at the time, and we reminisced about that, and it made me feel good. It made him feel good of what I had done, and that he realized, looking back, that the folly of Vietnam and
that's
and
good.
what cost.
That's validation. That's validation.
Yeah, so.
And a little bit of maybe exoneration on his part too, to be able to say that. All right, the next photograph is the one that Stevie wanted to start with. We've got a bunch to go, and if I can just say this, we got 15 minutes to go, so there's your 15-minute warning that I'm delivering tonight because our 15-minute girl is not on set with us.
Good job, Mike.
This picture here is a special one, and when I saw this, Al, this was kind of
That's why
neat.
I pulled it up early.
Yeah, well, and it's good. But look, we built the drama, and here we are.
Remember, I voted for you.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you
We
did.
teased a little bit.
Emma, we still got about 6 photos after this, so we got to hustle up. But come on, talk to me. This is Greg Kinnear here in this picture, right? Is that who that is there?
No, that's me with 25 pounds lighter. This was taken in '91, I think. The date's up there, you can see. But
looks like 1990, October of 1990.
1990. And Dr. Curtis Scott King is giving me the paperwork and appointing me to the Martin Luther King Jr. Federal Holiday Commission. Standing behind me is Paul Tagliabue, who was the head of the NFL at the time.
NFL commissioner.
And
absolutely.
behind Paul Tagliabue was Judge William Sessions, who was the head of the FBI at the time.
Wow.
And we were all made commissioners on the Martin Luther King Jr. Federal Holiday Commission. And the role of the commission was to get all the states to sign off on making Dr. King's birthday a national holiday. And if the federal government had not been involved, to excuse the expression, literally shove it down the state to the throat of some states, Dr. King would not have a federal holiday named after. So that was the role of the commission. And at that point in time that I'm getting this appointment, I'm also representing the South African government, which is at the height of the apartheid movement. And that convinced me that they were well on the way to making changes into that immoral system, and what they wanted was someone who had the right views on civil rights, because everybody that worked for South Africa at the time you could be classified as a racist, you know. I remember they paid me far more money than I was worth, but it was the philosophy that they wanted and someone who understood Washington, D.C. Well, the big name, quote unquote, lobbyists and law firms would not touch South Africa with a 10-foot pole because of the political stigma.
Sure.
And I remember telling them that, you know, I find that system immoral. And they said, yeah, okay, great. And so it was just a great experience.
Let's show picture number 8 to bolster your story, because this is you in Soweto, and I know you told us the story before, quickly and briefly, because we've got other photographs to get through, and we've got to get through them, including one with you and Elian Gonzalez. Let's talk about this.
This is visiting, this is the nicest, prettiest part of Soweto. Soweto is one of the most abject places where poverty exists. People live in corrugated cardboard boxes, dirt floors, urinate and defecate in tin cans. And I'm not talking about 20 or 20,000 people. I'm talking 20 million people.
It's like a whole city.
Yeah, massive. And this is all these young kids there. And at that point in time, all the children would get a very good education up until age 12 or 15, if you were non-white. And the reason for that is so that you could follow the instructions. And you see those children there, some have a blue vest, some have a red vest. That denotes the tribe that they're from. And they all, they're either Zulus or Hoksas, and of course they speak that language. But they were in class to learn Afrikaans, okay, so that they could follow the
language.
Yeah, and which ultimately resulted in.
How long, and how many trips did you make, Al, to Africa during that time period when you were working with?
More than a half a dozen, but I'd stay, 3 weeks, 4 weeks at a time.
At a time. Yeah. So you spent a good portion of time there. Let's
very interesting.
As the clock continues to just completely evaporate on us, let's skip to picture number 10, Becky, because there's a little bit of a story behind this one. Yep, that's fine. Picture number 10, and let's talk a little bit about this.
This is the man without the shirt is Juan Miguel, Elian Gonzalez's father, the little boy. And
everybody
that's
remembers Elian Gonzalez's
that's
story.
Elian Gonzalez right there. And the little girl, that's my daughter. And she spoke no Spanish, and Elian spoke no English. And this is where, as you recall, when they dramatically captured him from the home in which he was being held hostage.
Right.
They were violating a myriad of laws. And they brought him to Washington, D.C., and then they brought his father. The lady is one of Elian's school teachers that came here. And then the other gentleman, Dario Diaz, was a diplomat posted at the embassy. But they wanted to, they had a pool party, ironically, and just for the Cuban people at the mission. And the ambassador called me in the afternoon and said, my wife Ann and I wanted to stop by and to bring Irina, and we did. It was fascinating to watch Elian with his father. And for me, what those people in Miami did to kidnap that boy and hold him hostage is really immoral. Elian was always going back to Cuba. The law is very clear. If you're found in the waters, you go back, right? But when you see him interface with his dad, that's all you need to know, where that boy wanted to be.
Right.
Correct. That was a big, as they say in the neighborhood, Arrocomango. It was not a good situation, and it didn't turn well. Right. Let's jump to 16 real quick, Beck, because this is a good picture too. Yep, 16. And I know the guy in the middle. That guy looks familiar, and the guy on the far right, I think I know him too. But the rest, you're gonna have to fill in the
guy,
blanks.
of course, in the middle is Al Lopez.
El Senor.
El Senor, and that's my mom on his left, and on his right is my Aunt Alice, and Uncle Lou.
There you go.
And I was down here visiting for, I believe that's the night that E.J. Salcinas was the Hispanic Man of the Year or something. So that was maybe around well, I don't remember the date. But my mother asked me to go, so that was my date for.
Oh, great!
For that night, yeah.
And that's the great Al Lopez.
Al Lopez.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
And they, my mom and my Aunt Alice, they grew up in Ybor City, of course, as did Al Lopez as well, so they knew each other.
Picture number 14, Becky, because this has a little story behind it, and
Wow.
when Al saw this picture, he said, "Oh, that's the eagle. That's a good picture." So, quickly tell us the backstory.
Yeah, it's during the Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba. There's a statue right in the harbor on the Malacon of the main monument, and it's just a very big cylinder marble statue. I don't know, maybe 50, 75 feet up. But on the top of the statue was that bronze eagle. And during the Bay of Pigs invasion, the eagle was toppled and fell down, and that eagle now resides in the home of the chief of the American Interest Section in Havana, which would be equivalent to our ambassador there. That, to the people of Cuba, is very symbolic. Depending on what side of the political fence you are, if you support the United States embargo towards Cuba, your position is that when Cuba is free, then we're going to put the eagle back on top of the monument. And if you oppose the embargo, as I do, our position is put the eagle back up there right now.
Right now.
Okay.
Right now.
Because that monument is in honor of the Maine explosion and the people that died in the
Remember the Maine.
Remember the Maine. So, but it's interesting. And that picture actually is New Year's Day of 2000, where my wife and our youngest child went by boat to Cuba.
I think picture number 17. Picture number 17 is the same day because it looks like you're wearing the same shirt
it is.
there.
It was. You can see this Christmas tree is still up, and the lady in white is Vicki Huddleston, who was a career Foreign Service officer and our ambassador to several countries, and that's her husband. She, of course, was in the same position I was with Congressman Chappell. She had to tout the party line.
Yes.
But in her heart, she agreed with me. And privately, she told me, do not stop doing what you're doing.
And that's an absolute wonderful place to stop and kind of push the pause button. If you're recording at home, don't actually literally push the pause button, but push the pause button in a figurative sense, because we want to kind of remind everybody that Al will be with us next week. And as we kind of have nudged the conversation towards Cuba and embargo and all things that have to do with that.
Ybor City, I mean, it's
Well, I mean, we started here,
right.
and we kind of swam all the way over to there. You took the boat across, as it were,
right.
and here we are. Now we're in Cuba. So next week, I think when we come back,
fill in the
we'll
blanks.
take the opportunity to drill down a little bit further and talk a little more in detail about Cuba, about the embargo, about just today and yesterday, the United States Chamber of Commerce, their highest dignitary, Mr. Donahue, is over there currently, and there are things that are happening contrary to probably popular opinion in Washington that I think are making big changes. And we'll talk about that next week, and we'll take your emails in real time next week, because that may be a conversation that more of you might want to engage in, and we appreciate the opportunity to have banter with you. So, do you have any emails?
We have a quick question from Mike Badrinnen.
Okay, real quick
one
question.
One of our most ardent fans,
Yes,
Mike Badrinnen.
please.
He writes, interesting guy. Did you ever work with Congressman Sam Gibbons?
There you go.
I did, in the sense that I knew who he was, but my career was in the Senate, and Chairman Gibbons was always in the House. But I can say that no more decent, dedicated public servant than Sam Gibbons. So
Our lifetime.
Yeah.
And in there somewhere, did we not have a photograph of you with
That's Lawton
Sam
Childs.
Gibbons? That's Lawton Childs. That's what it was. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll solicit for your emails currently. If you've got a question or a comment that you'd like us to ask Al next week, you can always call the comment line. That's 813-920-2508. Let me repeat that, 813-920-2508. Leave a comment. We will Play the comment next week. We will ask the question on your behalf next week as Al joins us again. We did hear today, Stevie, I heard from our printer. Our new T-shirts are in.
Great.
So we're going to have them to share with you next week. Those of you that have ordered T-shirts, they're forthcoming. Donna Jones, your last week's Bolita winnings is on its way to you. We'll go back. We'll resume our Bolita drawing next week as well with the 15-minute girl here. And you'll be able to send in your emails with your Bolita
got a couple
numbers.
orders already for shirts, so I'm glad they're in.
No, and they're going to be spectacular.
Great,
so get ready
great.
for that. Al, we just want to say before we sign off, we got 2 minutes to go. First and foremost, thank you for joining us tonight. We're just getting started. The hour flew by. It's the fastest 60 minutes in cable broadcast history, with good reason. We'll be talking here as the week progresses to kind of patch together a little outline for next week's conversation. But fear not, Tampa Native Show fans. We're going to talk next week passionately about our feelings on Cuba, on the embargo, how shameful that the whole episode in our history has become, and some things that have happened along the way that you probably aren't aware of that may have changed the course of history. I referenced our former mayor and the visit that you had with him and meeting with Fidel Castro. And next week, if you would be so gracious, bring that little booklet that you had that you showed us, that little blue booklet, because we want to share that with everybody and the story that goes with that, Al. Thanks for the gracious comment at the outset.
Well, thank you for having me. I was reluctant, as you know, to do this, but
you were. I didn't want to sit this close to you. I got to be honest. The lightning strikes and it's close, but we love.
Enjoyable.
We are big fans of Al Fox here, and we're going to have him in studio with us next week. This man has not only led an incredible life, continues to lead an incredible life, and is doing some amazing work on behalf of the American public, especially those of us that have roots in Cuba that would like to go back there and travel freely. All right, glasses up, everybody. On behalf of everybody that puts this show together, I'd just like to say thank you once again to Al Fox, 15-Minute Girl. We miss you.
We do.
That's Tampa Steve. I'm Mario Nunez. Salud and happy days. We love you, Tampa.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Yes, we do, and we'll see you next week. We'll see you next week, Al.
I'll be here.
Thank you.
Back when we were younger and everything seemed new, we used to have a lot of fun, yes we did, no matter what we do. Sleepy days, long summer nights, going anywhere we please, with love that I could call my own, love that I've always known, the city that I call my home, a home from which I never roam. This love affair was meant to be. I love her and she loves me. I remember Tampa, oh, she remembers me. She remembers me. I remember, yeah, yes I do. Oh, I remember, yeah, me and you. I'm a Tampa native, Tampa native, can't you see? I will share my story with you to preserve its history.
Right now, don't forget, Thursdays, 7 p.m. on TBCN, home of the Tampa Natives Show.